I want to go through the basics of using Aware to create assessments. So in order to do that, you're going to have to access Eduphoria. And once you've gotten into Eduphoria and signed in, you will choose Aware. Aware is where we track all of our data, and it will always default to the Analyze tab. And the Analyze tab is where you can actually view historical data on your students. Any tests that we've entered into Aware, we can pull data that's very helpful in driving our instruction. But for today, I want to talk about creating assessments. So you will drop down to the second tab, which is Assessments. Once you're in the Assessments tab, it looks a little different than it did just a couple of years ago. Your options are either to create a new blank test, that's if you're working from scratch. You can copy an existing test. Or if you're going to pass out a test and you just simply are using Aware in order to track the data, you can choose Create a New Quick Test Key. That's a very simple process. You don't even enter the questions or you just enter the answer that is correct, and you link each question to a standard or to a specific TEK in order for us to use that data. But copy an existing test, we can do that one, or you can do create a new blank test. I'm going to go with copy an existing test just for demonstration purposes. So I want to copy a test that was given at the middle school in the prior school year, so in 1920. What we have done is we have archived all of our tests from the past, so we should be able to access those quite easily. Now you will notice we have ELAR, we have math, we have science, and that's because last school year and previous to this school year, we have not tracked other content areas in Aware. So social studies will be building their test or using the item bank to create tests. So if I were, for example, if I wanted to use a science test that we had used last year, all of our tests should always be named with this naming convention, the school year. So this year will be 2020 to 2021 with our content and with the test that we then also want to use. So for example, if I wanted to copy last year's 5th grade science unit 1 assessment, I could easily find it in this drop down. So that's what I'm choosing to do. That's the test I'm choosing to copy. Going to choose at the very bottom of the screen. I've highlighted the test and I want to make a copy of that test. This is now my opportunity. I've made my copy, so I'm going to make my changes to this screen. This will now become my 2020-2021 test rather than my 19 to 20. Subject science, my grade level is 5th grade. Okay, on the values, the performance levels, satisfactory will always default to 70 at the middle school, and advanced always defaults to 90 at the middle school. The other values are found from the STAR standards of performance. So approaches is field A, meets is field B, and masters is field C. Over here, it's already designated to the middle school and it's 5th grade science. And it looks like I need to add a middle school here. So I want to check mark that this is for the middle school campus. Aware is very picky. Sometimes when we don't have exactly every single box checked, it doesn't work the way we need it to. So sometimes if we have an issue on test day or before test day, just holler at me. I'll be a second set of eyes to look through and see if there's any boxes we didn't check. Once you've done the general, you now have set up the standards for your test. And since we copied a test, we have questions already filled in for our testing. And that's fine. But what if I didn't want to ask one of those questions? At this point, under the Questions tab, I can delete or change any questions. I can also, if I like all of those questions, but I want to add additional questions, I can simply come to the Add button here at the end. Now, when you do add a question to a test, you will have to link it to a standard. So you choose the type of question. Normally, we're to selected response in Aware. And you do have to link that question to the standard. So if I were going to ask a question, let me just choose a standard. How about 5.6a, explore the uses of energy. If I were going to ask a question related to that standard, I would then put it there. And we do have the option for including a secondary standard. Sometimes our questions will be a measure of more than one standard. And at this point, I will enter the question that I want to ask. And this one, of course, would be related to energy. So it could read something like one of the questions from the 2018 STAR test: which of these devices is the only one not designed to produce both sound and light energy? And then, of course, we would have to also add our answer choices at the bottom. We would add our responses. You do not have to include rationale, but you would add your answer choices and simply click the word create, and it will have added that 11th question. And once you add your answer choices, they would be there as well. I want to go ahead and delete that because I don't want that question to be in there. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes. Okay, once you have set up your test and you have all the questions in it, but you want to see what that test would look like printed out, you can go to your layout button here and you can print a copy of your test booklet. You can change this to test key and you can choose to print a copy of your test key as well. If you just want to take a quick look at your test key and make sure that you have all of the correct responses put in and you have all the standards put in correctly, you do have an option for test key. Under administration, you will come into administration and you will choose the students. For example, this is 5th grade science, so we want the 500 level students to be designated to take this test. If this were 6th grade science, we would have chosen the 600 level students. Another important place to look when you're creating the test is, even though we're under the administration tab, we do have to look under the collection tab as well. Collection is where we will designate what dates this can be given. If I were planning to give this test on September 18th, I would probably want to set the due date for about a week later than that to account for any students who may not be at school and who may have to retake that test. Most of us are now enabling online testing. There are some supports, some embedded supports built into Aware now that have not been there previously. Text-to-speech, which is what you would give for kids designated as oral administration, as well as spelling assistance, is available to any student you designate. So enabling online testing would be the way to set up your test. If I set up the test for you, I will also enable online testing so that you can take advantage of those supports. Online test proctoring does default to teachers, and we do want the teachers to be the proctor of those tests. And I will be sending out another video that explains that, although many of you did that last year. You will find that you can choose those embedded supports by student this year. You can designate those so that when they go in and open their online test, they will automatically have access to the supports that they should have access to. So we do want to proctor by teacher, and we do want to, whenever possible, give the test online. Also, remember, when you give the test online, you don't have to make all the copies of the test, and you don't even have to print an answer document, because when students answer their test through the online Aware testing system, it automatically captures their answers, and we don't have to use the paper that we have had to use in the past. Okay, there's one other option I want to explain to you down here, and this under general settings. Teachers can answer. I almost always change that to all questions because that will allow you to edit any responses that you need to edit in order for your data to be accurate. Okay, once you have entered a test and you have designated the dates, you've enabled the online testing, your test is ready to go. You only really need to do one more thing, and that is to change the status. This is one more important thing. You have to change the status of your test from pending to active. And when you change that test to active, and it's saving right now, But when that test is changed, I'm not sure if it's going to save, but when it's changed from a pending status to an active status, that is when, as the teacher, and you go, we're going to pretend that changed, but as a teacher, when you go to back to your Analyze tab, there is an option up at the top for you that says test available. And once a test has been put into active status and you're within the date range, you will be able to access your tests that are available. And that's the screen where you will go in order to begin your online testing. It's also the screen where you would go to print any documents that might need to be printed. So that is a very brief description of creating tests in Aware. I am happy to help you in any way that I can with that. If you have tests that need to be created in Aware, I can do those for you, but I do need the test at least a week ahead of test day in order to get everything in the system appropriately and have you an opportunity to review what I've done to check for any mistakes so that we can correct those before going out to the students.